The crystalline vessel hung in Earth's orbit, its refractive hull bending light around it to create perfect invisibility. Inside the command center, First Scout Xylith watched the holographic displays with her 4 primary eyes, mandibles clicking thoughtfully as the reconnaissance drones transmitted their findings. Fascinating primitives, she chittered to Science Officer Vexkar, who hovered beside her on gossamer wings. Look how they train. The display showed human soldiers navigating a dense forest. What intrigued Xylith wasn't their weapons or their physical capabilities. Both were laughably inferior to the hierarchy's warriors, but rather their behavior. The squad had deliberately split into smaller units, each making independent decisions without constant communication with their command structure. Most inefficient, Vexkar observed, antennae twitching. Their energy expenditure increases by 37% when operating in such a manner. I'll assume the display, focusing on a female human officer who was consulting a primitive paper map while her subordinates secured a perimeter. No neural linkage, no hive mind synchronization, just individual thought processes. This is their 17th such exercise this lunar cycle, Vexkar continued, compound eyes reflecting the blue glow of the displays. They intentionally disrupt their own communications networks during these drills. It serves no logical purpose. The hierarchy had conquered 17 worlds through perfect unity of thought and action. Every drone, worker and warrior received their instructions directly through the neural network, their actions coordinated with millisecond precision. The concept of individual tactical decision-making was not just foreign, it was inefficient to the point of absurdity. Their military documentation refers to these as communication blackout scenarios. The science officer added, projecting translated human military documents onto a secondary display. They deliberately practice for command structure failure. Xylith's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among her kind. They expect failure. How telling. Junior Tactical Analyst Prevail approached hesitantly, her carapace still showing the pale green of youth. Exalted First Scout, I've identified an unusual pattern in these exercises. Speak. The humans appear to be improving. When their communication systems fail, their mission success rates increase by 12% when operating under these blackout conditions, compared to scenarios with full communication capabilities. Xylith's secondary eyes swiveled toward the junior analyst. Impossible. Decision latency always increases efficiency costs. Nevertheless, the data suggests. The data suggests nothing except human unpredictability. Vexkar interrupted. Their chaotic approach occasionally produces statistical anomalies that appear as patterns. Nothing more. The junior analyst's antennae drooped in submission, but she persisted. With respect, the pattern repeats across all 17 monitored training events. Their doctrine emphasizes something called commander's intent, the understanding of objectives beyond specific orders. Xylith waved a limb dismissively. An amusing curiosity, nothing more. Their approach to warfare is as primitive as their technology. She turned her attention to the tactical display showing Earth's defensive capabilities. Our strategy remains unchanged. We will sever their command structure at precisely coordinated points. Without direction, their forces will become disorganized and ineffective. The junior analyst began to speak again but thought better of it. The first scout had made her decision. The hierarchy's invasion protocol had succeeded 17 times before. There was no reason to believe the 18th would be any different. On the display, the human training exercise concluded. The squad leader gathered her team, discussing what appeared to be a performance evaluation. No neural downloads, no perfect replay of events, just imprecise verbal communication and individual perspectives. Such wasteful training. Xylith remarked, mandibles clicking in amusement, teaching warriors to think for themselves instead of simply executing commands. The invasion timetable remains optimal, Vexkar confirmed. Our disruptors will neutralize their command centers simultaneously. Without leadership, their military units will be rendered inert. Lilith chittered in satisfaction as she authorized the attack sequence. In 26 hours, the hierarchy would begin its standard conquest protocol. Cut the head off, and the body would die, as it had on 17 worlds before. The junior analyst watched silently, her concerns noted but dismissed. In her analysis pad, she had written one observation that would go unheeded. Warning: human soldiers don't stop when command stops. They start thinking instead. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen of the U.S. Resilience stood on the bridge, watching the multinational naval exercise unfold across the Pacific. Vessels from 12 nations coordinated their movements in a choreographed display of cooperative defense. The comm system buzzed with chatter, status reports, course corrections, and the occasional joke between allied commanders. Communication discipline, people, she reminded her crew with a smile. Admiral Thompson is monitoring all channels. Her XO, Lieutenant Rivera, nodded. Yes, Mom. Though I suspect the Australians are running a betting pool on how long before we hit the surprise comm blackout scenario. Probably, Chen agreed. And I've got $20 that says it happens during lunch. The sky above was clear blue, perfect for the exercise. None of the sophisticated radar systems, satellite arrays, or deep space telescopes detected the distortion fields activating in high orbit. None of the naval crews saw the swarm of quantum disruptors descending through the atmosphere, precisely targeted at command centers across the globe. The first indication something was wrong came when Admiral Thompson's transmission cut mid-sentence. Admiral. Chen tapped her earpiece. Fleet Command. This is Resilience. Please respond. Lieutenant Rivera frowned at his console. Ma'am, we're losing connections across the board. Satellite uplinks gone, long-range comms down. Exercise scenario starting early. Chen wondered, but the peculiar static crawling across their communication systems didn't match any training protocol she recognized. The tactical officer spoke up, voice tense. Commander, we're detecting multiple atmospheric entry events. Whatever they are, they're not ours. Before Chen could respond, a blinding flash erupted from the horizon. The Pacific Fleet Command Center, located on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, disappeared in a column of iridescent energy that was definitely not part of any exercise. Battle stations. Chen ordered, training taking over. This is not a drill. On the hierarchy command vessel, First Scout Sylith watched with satisfaction as the quantum disruptors performed flawlessly. 17 command centers neutralized simultaneously, with 98% coordination efficiency. Neural inhibitor swarms deployed, Vexcar reported. Human communication networks experiencing cascading failures worldwide. The tactical display showed human military vessels halting their movements, exactly as predicted. Without central command, the primitive vessels appeared to be drifting aimlessly. Prepare landing parties, Tylith ordered. Standard Conquest formation. Junior Analyst Kirival monitored her station with growing unease. First Scout, I'm detecting anomalous energy signatures from several human vessels. They appear to be activating secondary systems. Expected behavior, Vexcar dismissed. Emergency power protocols. Their command structure is severed. These are merely automated responses. Sylith's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Just as on Proxima II and Ta Ceti, without their leaders, they become disorganized. Commence Phase 2. Landing craft detached from the hierarchy vessel, each carrying warrior drones programmed to secure strategic locations. The invasion that had conquered 17 worlds was proceeding exactly according to protocol. Below decks on the U.S. Resilience, Commander Chen gathered her officers around a paper map spread across a table. Emergency lights cast an amber glow across their faces. All right, here's what we know, she said, voice steady despite the chaos unfolding outside. Communications are down across the board. Fleet command is gone. We've got unknown hostiles in the air and probable landing craft inbound. Orders, Commander? Asked Chief Engineer Patel. Chen studied the faces of her crew. They trained for this, not an alien invasion, perhaps, but for the loss of command structure, for operating independently when the chain of command collapsed. "We know what to do," she said firmly. "Our standing orders in case of attack are to protect civilian populations and strategic assets. Without further direction, that's exactly what we'll do." Rivera spread his hands across the map. "Nearest civilian centers are these coastal cities. If hostiles are landing, that's where they'll go." "Then so will we," Chen decided. "Engineering, can you get us mobile without broadcasting our position?" Patel nodded. "Silent running protocols. Aye. We can move without lighting up their sensors." Chen straightened, feeling the weight of command. No admirals, no fleet coordination. Just her ship and her crew making their own decisions based on their training and their understanding of their duty. "Prepare to move out. Weapons hot but emissions cold. We're going hunting." Across the Pacific, other vessels were coming to the same conclusions, not through coordinated orders or central command, but through individual officers making the same assessment based on their training and doctrine. Without being told what to do, they were doing exactly what they had been prepared for. The hierarchy's perfect decapitation strategy was about to encounter something their 17 previous conquests had never presented: warriors who didn't stop fighting when the orders stopped coming. The hierarchy landing craft touched down with precision at their designated coordinates, a communications hub on the outskirts of San Diego. Warrior-cased drones filed out in perfect formation, carapaces gleaming under Earth's sun. Their mission parameters were simple: secure the facility, neutralize any resistance, and prepare it for hierarchy occupation. Field Commander Zexer led the formation, neural receivers constantly updating tactical information from the command vessel. Intelligence indicated minimal organized resistance. Human military units should be paralyzed without their command structure. "Perimeter scan complete," reported a drone, detecting no coordinated defense patterns. Zexer's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Proceed as planned. Standard Conquest protocol." The warriors advanced toward the facility, weapons primed. Their intelligence had been correct about one thing: there was no coordinated defense. What they encountered instead was far worse. The first sign of trouble came as precision fire erupted from 3 separate positions, not random or panicked fire, but carefully placed shots targeting the hierarchy's communication nodes and sensor arrays. "Contact," Zexer announced unnecessarily, as 2 drones fell, receiving fire from multiple positions. The neural network buzzed with confusion. This wasn't supposed to happen. Without central command, human resistance should be disorganized and ineffective. Marine Staff Sergeant Jackson watched through his rifle scope as the insectoid aliens scrambled for cover. His 4-person team had set up their ambush an hour earlier, after observing the landing craft's approach trajectory. "Keep targeting those antenna-looking things on their backs," he instructed over short-range comm. "Whatever they are, they don't like losing them." No orders had come through since the attack began. After the flash that took out command, Jackson had made a quick decision based on his last standing orders: protect critical infrastructure. The communications hub qualified. "They're regrouping on the east side," came Corporal Martinez's voice. "Moving in formation again." Jackson nodded. "Shift positions according to pattern, Charlie. Make them think we're a full company." 4 Marines, operating on training and initiative, were about to give the aliens a lesson in human warfare. On the hierarchy command vessel, Silith's confusion was rapidly turning to concern. "Explain this," she demanded, multiple eyes fixed on the tactical displays showing red alerts across landing zones. Vexcar's wings fluttered anxiously. "Anomalous resistance patterns," Exalted One. "The humans appear to be adapting." "Impossible," Silith chittered. "We've severed their command structure. Their units should be functionally paralyzed." Junior Analyst Prevail approached cautiously. "First Scout, I've analyzed the resistance patterns. They're not coordinated globally, but individual units are displaying tactical coherence." She hesitated before adding, They're fighting effectively without commands. Syleth's mandibles clacked in disbelief. Capture specimens. I want to understand this anomaly. The U.S. Resilience glided silently through the water, running dark. On the bridge, Commander Chen studied the tactical display, which showed heat signatures of 3 alien vessels moving toward the California coastline. They're heading for San Diego, Rivera confirmed. Major population center and military installations. Chen nodded. Plot intercept course for the lead vessel. All weapons prepare for silent targeting. The ship moved like a predator, stalking prey that didn't expect resistance. The aliens had miscalculated badly, assuming that disrupting command meant neutralizing human forces. Instead, they'd activated thousands of independent decision-makers, each applying their training to the situation at hand. Zexer found himself in the unthinkable position of calling for extraction. His landing party, initially 40 strong, had been reduced to 27 functional warriors. The humans are using multiple small units, he reported to the command vessel. They coordinate locally without central command. Request tactical reassessment. Before the command vessel could respond, the ground shook as precision artillery fire began landing around the hierarchy position. Somehow, the humans had called in support without using standard communication channels. Elsewhere across the globe, similar scenarios were unfolding. In the mountains of Afghanistan, special forces teams who operated routinely with minimal oversight were targeting alien landing zones. In Ukraine, territorial defense units accustomed to communication disruption were employing guerrilla tactics against hierarchy forces. Across the Pacific, naval vessels were moving independently toward common objectives without fleet coordination. Kirval's observation had been correct, but no one in the hierarchy had fully comprehended its implications. When human soldiers lost contact with command, they didn't freeze. They started thinking for themselves, and that made them infinitely more dangerous than the hierarchy had calculated. The storm was awakening, not with one massive thunderclap, but with thousands of lightning strikes, each guided by human initiative rather than central control. First Scout Syleth convened an emergency war council aboard the command vessel. The holographic display showed Earth's surface dotted with red markers, each representing a hierarchy operation experiencing unexpected resistance. 3 standard cycles. She chittered angrily. 3 cycles, and we have secured only 17% of designated targets. Her commander's antennae drooped in collective shame. This was unprecedented in the hierarchy's conquest history. We have captured human specimens for analysis, Vexcar reported, bringing forward a neural data crystal. The results are disturbing. The crystal projected the interrogation of a captured Marine sergeant. The human sat bound but defiant, facing his insectoid captors. Who commanded you to ambush our landing party? The interrogator demanded. The human's response sent a ripple of unease through the assembled commanders. Nobody. We lost contact with HQ, saw you aliens heading for critical infrastructure, and made a judgment call. Impossible, one commander chittered. Without neural guidance, warriors cannot formulate tactical objectives. Syleth silenced him with a gesture. Continue. The interrogation playback resumed. Explain this concept of judgment call, the interrogator insisted. The human sergeant appeared confused by the question. We knew the mission priority was protecting civilian populations and critical infrastructure. When comms went down, we followed the last standing orders using our training and experience. Vexcar paused the projection. We have analyzed their military documentation. They have a doctrine called Commander's Intent. Their warriors are taught the purpose behind orders, not merely the actions to perform. To demonstrate, Vexcar brought forward a hierarchy warrior drone and severed its neural connection. The warrior immediately became passive, awaiting new instructions that couldn't come. Our warriors without neural guidance, Vexcar explained unnecessarily. The scientist then projected images of human military training. They deliberately practice operating with minimal guidance. They call it distributed command, mission-type tactics, and initiative. Their warriors are expected to understand objectives and adapt methods as circumstances change. Junior Analyst Prevail spoke up. I've completed analysis of their military structure. Their smallest functional units have leadership capacity. Even when severed from higher command, these fire teams and squads maintain tactical coherence. The council chamber filled with the uneasy clicking of mandibles. This was beyond their experience. More disturbing, Vexcar continued, they train specifically for communication disruption. Their doctrines anticipate the loss of command and control. They have protocols for exactly the scenario we have created. Xylith's primary eyes narrowed. You are suggesting our primary conquest strategy has not disabled them, but activated pre-existing protocols. Precisely, Prevail confirmed. By severing their command structure, we have triggered their contingency protocols. Each unit is now operating independently toward common objectives they internalized during training. In a forward operating base hastily established in what had been a high school gymnasium, Major General Williams surveyed the paper maps spread across folding tables. Runners arrived regularly with updates from the field, written messages conveying positions, enemy movements, and resource needs. Like going back to World War II tactics, his aide commented. Williams nodded. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. We're adapting faster than they are. A Marine captain approached with a fresh report. Sir, we've established contact with 3 National Guard units and several police departments using civilian shortwave radio. They're forming defensive perimeters around population centers. Good. Any word from the Pentagon or NORTHCOM? Nothing definitive, sir, but units everywhere are following standing defense plans. We're seeing coordinated resistance forming organically across all branches. Williams wasn't surprised. The modern military had evolved specifically to function in distributed networks rather than rigid hierarchies. Every officer and NKO was trained to understand not just what they were ordered to do, but why they were doing it. When communications failed, that understanding became their guide. The aliens cut off our head, Williams said, studying the map, but they don't understand that our nervous system doesn't work like theirs. We don't paralyze when the brain can't send signals. Every part of our military can think for itself. Back on the command vessel, Xylith faced an unpalatable conclusion. The conquest strategy that had worked perfectly on 17 worlds was failing on the 18th. Revise primary approach, she ordered finally. Target their individual units directly rather than command structures. Vexcar's antennae twitched nervously. Exalted One, there are thousands of independent units now operating. We cannot target them all simultaneously. Xylith stared at the planet displayed before her, its surface glittering with the lights of human civilization, and now, increasingly, with the fires of resistance. Then we face something unprecedented, she acknowledged. An enemy that becomes more dangerous, not less, when its command structure fails. The realization spread through the hierarchy command. They had not decapitated the human military. They had unleashed it. Navy Lieutenant Michael Rice checked his oxygen gauge one last time before giving the hand signal. His 5-person SEAL team acknowledged silently, their movements nearly imperceptible in the pre-dawn darkness. For 6 hours, they had been observing the alien forward operating base established in what had once been Naval Air Station North Island. Their last orders before communications went dark had been simple: gather intelligence on the invaders. With no way to receive updated commands, they were operating on that directive and their own initiative. Remember, Rise whispered to his team, we're looking for their communication tech. In and out, minimal engagement. Petty Officer Garcia nodded. Like that mission in Yemen. No backup, no comms. Exactly. We've done this before, Rise affirmed, just with different-looking hostiles. The SEALs moved through the shallow water, approaching the alien base from its seaward side, where security appeared lightest. Their breathing equipment, designed for covered operations, released no telltale bubbles. Their thermal signatures were masked by specialized wetsuits. They were ghosts, guided by training and purpose rather than direct orders. Inside the hierarchy base, Tactical Commander Meslar monitored the perimeter defenses. The operation was proceeding more smoothly now that they had adapted to human resistance patterns. Neural network connections hummed with data, every warrior precisely controlled through the central system. Perimeter drone reports all sectors secure, a subordinate reported. Meslar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Maintain vigilance. These humans are unpredictable. What neither the commander nor the neural network detected were the 6 thermal masked figures slipping through a drainage outlet beneath the sensor grid. Aboard the command vessel, Junior Analyst Prevail had been tasked with studying human military structure in depth. What she discovered sent wavelengths of alarm through her neural centers. "First Scout," she reported, approaching Xylith's command podium. "I have identified another anomaly in human military function." Xylith, still processing multiple tactical setbacks, turned her primary eyes toward the analyst. "Speak." "The humans have specialized units designated for independent operation behind enemy lines. They are called Special Forces and are specifically trained to function without regular communication or support." Vexkar's wings fluttered dismissively. "All warriors require coordination." "Not these," Prevail insisted. "Their training documentation emphasizes self-sufficiency and autonomous decision-making. They operate in small teams with comprehensive mission knowledge." Xylith's secondary eyes narrowed. "You suggest these units pose particular threat?" "I suggest they were designed precisely for the conditions we have created," Prevail replied. "By isolating human forces from Central Command, we have created the optimal environment for these special units to operate as they were trained to do." Inside the alien base, Reyes's team moved with practiced efficiency. Years of missions in hostile territory had prepared them for exactly this scenario. They located what appeared to be a central communications node, a crystalline structure pulsing with energy and surrounded by the insectoid aliens. Chief Petty Officer Wilson, the team's technical specialist, studied the alien technology through specialized optics. Definitely their version of a server farm. Biological components integrated with crystalline computing. "Can you access it?" Reyes whispered. Wilson nodded. "Similar electromagnetic signatures to our technology, just more advanced. If I can place the core device within 3 meters, it should capture their transmission protocols." The core, communications origin recording equipment, was a black box designed to passively absorb and analyze unknown communication systems. Normally, such intelligence would be transmitted to command for analysis, but without functioning communications, the team would have to physically extract it. "Parker, Chen, create a diversion on the east perimeter," Reyes ordered. "Nothing too loud, just enough to draw guards away from this section." His team nodded, understanding the mission parameters without lengthy explanation. This was why they trained so rigorously, to make decisions on the fly when following a commander's intent rather than specific orders. In Washington, D.C., a basement conference room in an unmarked building had become a makeshift command center. Colonel Margaret Hayes, working by the light of emergency generators, coordinated resistance efforts using a network of civilian ham radio operators. "The aliens expected us to collapse when they took out our leadership," she told the assembled officers. "Instead, we got thousands of unit commanders making independent decisions based on standing defense plans." A Marine major nodded. "It's not pretty or perfectly coordinated, but it's working. We're seeing consistent patterns: protect civilians, secure infrastructure, gather intelligence, and hit their supply lines." Hayes smiled grimly. "No one's waiting for orders from the top. Everyone knows what needs doing." This was humanity's hidden strength, not technology or numbers, but a military philosophy that distributed decision-making authority throughout the force. What the hierarchy saw as inefficiency was, in fact, the ultimate resilience against their primary attack strategy. As dawn broke over Earth's contested continents, the invaders were beginning to understand. They hadn't faced an enemy like this before, and their perfect record of conquest was about to be broken. The explosion at the east perimeter of the alien base wasn't large, but it served its purpose. Hierarchy warrior drones rushed toward the disturbance, their movements perfectly synchronized through the neural network. This predictable response created exactly the opening Lieutenant Rice and his team needed. "Now," Rice whispered, and Chief Wilson darted forward. The core device clutched against his chest. He reached the crystalline communication node, placed the device beneath the main terminal, and activated it with a practiced motion. The core immediately began absorbing and analyzing the alien communication frequencies, its advanced systems working to decipher the neural protocols that linked the hierarchy forces. 60 seconds, Wilson murmured, watching the progress indicator on his wrist display. In the distance, the diversionary team was already executing their extraction plan, leading the alien security forces on a precisely calculated chase that would ultimately bring them back to the rendezvous point. Everything was proceeding according to the mission parameters they had established themselves, without any input from higher command. On the command vessel, Phylith reviewed the latest tactical assessments with growing concern. Human resistance wasn't just continuing, it was becoming more effective. Their attacks are increasingly targeted, Vexcar noted, displaying a holographic map of recent engagements. They're specifically focusing on our communication infrastructure and supply lines. Kiraval, now promoted to senior analyst due to her accurate predictions, added, "They're learning our patterns and adapting faster than we can revise tactics." "Impossible," one commander chittered. "Without central coordination, they cannot share tactical data efficiently." Kiraval projected intercepted human communications, primitive radio transmissions, light signals, even physical messengers. They're using redundant, decentralized communication methods, primitive but effective, and nearly impossible to completely disrupt. Xylith's mandibles clicked in frustration. "We severed their command structure precisely to prevent coordinated resistance. And in doing so," Kiraval explained, "we forced them to fall back on protocols designed for exactly this scenario." Their military doctrine anticipated command failure. To demonstrate, Kiraval displayed translated human military documents. The assembled commanders read with increasing discomfort. Leaders at all levels must understand the purpose behind their orders. When communications fail, commanders will execute the last understood intention. Initiative is expected and rewarded. Units will self-synchronize through shared understanding of commander's intent. Xylith's antennae quivered as the implications became clear. The hierarchy's perfect unity came from centralized control. Humanity's resilience came from distributed understanding. "They do not think as we think," she realized aloud. Lieutenant Commander Chen stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resilience, studying the data captured from a disabled alien vessel. For 2 days, her crew had been analyzing the strange technology, working to understand the invaders' capabilities and weaknesses. "Their entire military operates on a neural network," Chief Engineer Patel explained, pointing to the captured communication device. "Every soldier receives direct instructions through these nodes. They don't make tactical decisions independently." Chen nodded slowly. "So their warriors are essentially remote-controlled drones." "Exactly," Patel confirmed. "And all control signals appear to route through major relay stations, these crystalline structures we've observed at their forward bases." A plan began forming in Chen's mind. Without global communications, she couldn't coordinate with other military units directly. But if every commander analyzing the same alien technology reached the same conclusion, "Prepare a briefing package on everything we've learned," she ordered. "Use civilian shortwave frequencies to broadcast it in coded bursts. Any military unit with radio receivers will get the information." Her communications officer frowned. "Ma'am, without encryption protocols, the aliens might intercept the transmissions." "Doesn't matter," Chen replied. "By the time they decode the information, every independent human combat unit will have already reached the same conclusion we have." Across Earth, a pattern emerged. Human military forces, operating without central command, but guided by shared doctrine, began targeting the same objectives simultaneously. In California, Army Rangers assaulted a hierarchy communication relay. In Ukraine, Special Forces disabled a neural network node. In South Africa, a submarine crew launched precision strikes against alien communication vessels. Not through coordinated orders, but through independent analysis leading to the same conclusions. Each unit commander, working with limited intelligence and their understanding of mission priorities, identified the alien's centralized command structure as the critical vulnerability. The hierarchy's greatest strength, perfect unity through central control, had become its fatal weakness against an enemy that thrived on decentralized operations. Aboard the command vessel, alarms blared as reports of simultaneous attacks flooded in. Lilith stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Without global communications, without central command, the humans had somehow synchronized a worldwide counteroffensive. How? She demanded. How are they coordinating these attacks? Prevail's answer came quietly. They aren't. They're each making the same logical decision independently. This is what they trained for. The tables had turned. The hunted had become the hunters. First Scout Xylith paced the command center, her normally fluid movements now jerky with stress. Holographic displays surrounding her showed red alerts flashing across Earth's surface, each representing a hierarchy position under attack. 73 communication relays compromised in the last 6 hours, reported Vexkar, his wings drooping. Neural network integrity at 62% and falling. Xylith's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. How are they coordinating these simultaneous strikes without central command? Senior analyst Prevail projected her latest findings. They aren't coordinating in our sense of the term. Each human unit independently analyzed our technology and identified the same vulnerabilities. Their attacks appear synchronized because they're all following the same logical progression based on shared military doctrine. Impossible, chittered a senior commander. Such complexity requires centralized direction. Not for them, Prevail explained. Their military history shows repeated emphasis on what they call commander's intent, the concept that every warrior should understand not just their specific orders, but the overall strategic objective. Xylith studied the tactical display, watching as human forces continued their seemingly coordinated assaults despite the communication blackout that should have rendered them helpless. We must adapt, she decided suddenly. Concentrate our neural network. Direct neural control of all warriors from this command vessel. Maximum efficiency. Perfect coordination. Vexkar's antennae twitched in alarm. Exalted One, such concentration creates a single point of vulnerability. And a single point of perfect control, Xylith countered. We cannot match their distributed decision-making, so we must perfect our centralized command. Every warrior will receive direct neural guidance from this vessel. No delays, no misinterpretations. As the hierarchy technical specialists began reconfiguring the neural network, Prevail watched with growing concern. Her analysis suggested this approach would ultimately prove disastrous, but the first scout had made her decision. Lieutenant Reyes and his SEAL team had successfully extracted from the alien base the core device now safely in their possession. As they regrouped in an abandoned warehouse 5 miles inland, Chief Wilson connected the device to their portable analysis equipment. "This is incredible," Wilson murmured as data streamed across his screen. Their entire military operates on a neural network that directly controls each soldier. No individual decision-making whatsoever. Ray studied the diagrams forming on the display. So their warriors are basically remote-controlled drones. Exactly. And look at this. Wilson pointed to a shifting pattern in the data. They're consolidating their network, routing more control functions through the command vessel in orbit. Petty Officer Garcia whistled softly. They're putting all their eggs in one basket. That's a vulnerability, Rise realized. Can we disrupt it? Wilson nodded slowly. The core captured their transmission protocols. With the right equipment, we could potentially generate a competing signal, create confusion in their neural network. What would we need? a powerful transmitter and direct line of sight to the command vessel. Rays considered their options. Without communication to higher command, they couldn't request specialized equipment or support. They would have to improvise with whatever resources they could find locally. There's a satellite communications facility about 12 miles north, he decided. If we can reach it and reconfigure the transmitters. His team nodded, understanding the plan without needing it spelled out. This was why Special Forces units were so effective even when cut off from command. Each operator understood not just specific tasks but the overall mission objective. Aboard the U.S. Resilience, Commander Chen received the coded transmission from a coastal listening post. The message had been relayed through a chain of civilian radio operators, ham radio enthusiasts, and local military units, a decentralized communication network that the aliens couldn't easily disrupt. Multiple Special Forces teams reporting the same finding, her communications officer explained. The aliens are consolidating their control network through the main vessel in orbit. Chen studied the hastily drawn diagrams that had accompanied the transmission. They're creating a single point of failure, probably trying to enhance their coordination against our distributed attacks. If we could disrupt that vessel, Lieutenant Rivera began. Chen nodded, already formulating a plan. Navigation. Plot a course toward this position. We need to coordinate with any air assets in the region. Coordinate how, Commander? We still don't have secure communications. Chen smiled grimly. We don't need to coordinate directly. If every commander seeing this intelligence reaches the same conclusion, they'll all move to attack the command vessel, Rivera finished, understanding dawning on his face. This was humanity's ultimate advantage, not technology or numbers, but thousands of leaders independently working toward the same goal without needing explicit direction. The hierarchy's attempt to enhance their centralized control had only created a more obvious target for humanity's distributed forces. As the Resilience changed course, similar decisions were being made by commanders across Earth, not through centralized orders, but through shared understanding of what needed to be done. The ultimate vulnerability in the hierarchy's perfect system was about to be exposed. Dawn broke over the Pacific as Lieutenant Reyes and his team finished reconfiguring the satellite dish. The massive communications array, once used for deep space research, now pointed directly at the hierarchy command vessel, visible as a faint shimmer against the morning sky. Final checks complete, Chief Wilson reported, connecting the CORI device to their improvised transmitter, ready to broadcast on their neural frequency. Reyes surveyed their handiwork with quiet pride. In less than 8 hours, without external guidance or orders, his team had infiltrated the facility, adapted the equipment, and prepared to strike directly at the heart of the alien command structure. Begin transmission on my mark, he ordered, checking his watch. The timing didn't need to be precise. They had no way to coordinate with other military units, but years of training had instilled in him a sense of mission discipline. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The dish hummed to life, broadcasting a carefully modulated signal derived from the hierarchy's own neural network frequencies. The core device had analyzed the alien communication patterns and generated a disruption signal, not to jam the network outright, but to introduce subtle contradictions into the neural commands. Signal away, Wilson confirmed. If this works, their warriors should start receiving conflicting commands. Aboard the command vessel, Kyleth supervised the final integration of the concentrated neural network. Thousands of neural pathways now routed directly through the ship's central processors, giving her unprecedented control over every hierarchy warrior on Earth's surface. Neural efficiency at maximum, Vexcar reported. All warriors directly linked to Central Command. Response time reduced by 63%. Kyleth's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Begin synchronized offensive operations. Target remaining human military concentrations simultaneously. The order flowed through the neural network, transmitting directly to each warrior drone. But as the commands propagated, something unexpected happened. Anomaly detected in neural patterns, a technician reported suddenly. Warriors in Sector 7 reporting command conflicts. Before Xylith could respond, more alerts flashed across the control displays. Warriors were receiving contradictory instructions, causing confusion and hesitation. Source of interference, she demanded. Multiple sources, came the alarming reply. Detecting broadcast intrusions matching our neural frequencies from 17 locations on the planet's surface. Prevail's antennae twitched in realization. The humans have analyzed our communication protocols. They're broadcasting competing signals on our neural wavelengths. Impossible, Xylith chittered. Our technology is beyond their comprehension. They didn't need to fully understand it, Prevail explained. They only needed to observe the patterns and replicate them. Different human groups, working independently, reached the same solution. Across the tactical display, reports flooded in of warrior drones freezing in confusion or executing contradictory orders. The perfect centralized control that was supposed to be the hierarchy's advantage had become a catastrophic vulnerability. Commander Chen watched through the periscope as the U.S. Resilience positioned itself beneath the alien command vessel's orbital path. Around them, other naval vessels had arrived, seemingly by coincidence, but actually through the same independent analysis that had brought the Resilience here. Multiple submarine contacts, all friendly, the sonar operator reported. They're taking up firing positions. Chen nodded. Without direct coordination, submarine commanders across the fleet had reached the same conclusion and converged on this location. Each vessel had arrived prepared to attack the alien command ship, understanding that it represented the critical vulnerability in the enemy system. Prepare anti-orbital missiles for launch, she ordered. Target the command vessel's lower quadrant, where their communication arrays are concentrated. As the missiles were prepared, Chen reflected on how fundamentally the aliens had misunderstood human military philosophy. They had expected chaos when they severed command, but instead encountered thousands of independent decision-makers, all working toward common objectives. Missiles ready, her weapons officer reported. Launch. Across the Pacific, other submarines launched simultaneously, not through coordinated timing, but through shared understanding of the mission objective. Dozens of missiles streaked upward toward the shimmering alien vessel. In the final moments before impact, First Scout Xylith finally comprehended the fundamental error in their conquest strategy. The neural network, their greatest strength, had become their greatest weakness precisely because it was centralized. As alarms blared and impact warnings flashed, she turned to Prevail. How did we fail to understand them? The analyst's response was simple. We assumed they think as we think. We believed warriors cannot function without constant direction. We were wrong. As the first missiles struck, disrupting the neural network and throwing the hierarchy forces into disarray, a new understanding dawned across the galaxy. Humanity's military philosophy, distributing decision-making authority throughout the force rather than centralizing it, had proven the perfect counter to the hierarchy's conquest strategy. The message spread to other worlds and species: beware the humans, for their soldiers become more dangerous, not less, when left to their own devices. They don't freeze when command fails. They adapt, improvise, and overcome. In the aftermath, as the hierarchy retreat began, the galaxy learned a crucial lesson. The most dangerous warrior isn't the one who follows orders perfectly. It's the one who knows what to do when no orders come.